I worked as a flight attendant for a few years when I decided to take a break from college. There were a handful of weird situations I encountered, but one in particular made my skin crawl more than any other. I was born and raised in Texas, but moved to New York when I was 21. So when I found out at the beginning of the week-long trip that I'd have a couple of overnights in Austin, I was super excited to go to my home state for a few days. My brother lived just north of the city, and we planned to hang out and go to dinner that night. I arrived when he got off of work. The following day, we were going to meet up with our dad. I get to the hotel downtown, the crew and I check in, and then we head off to our rooms. I get to mine where not even 5 minutes later there's a loud, hard knock on the door. It was only around 1 or 2 p.m. and I hadn't called either my dad or my brother to let them know I was in town yet. I assumed it was maybe one of my crewmates. Before even making it to the door, however, a loud male voice on the other side boomed. "Front desk sent me about the bathroom problem you called in. Unlock the door and open up, please." I froze in my tracks. I hadn't even been in the bathroom yet, let alone called anything to the front desk. Slowly inching toward the door to look out of the peephole, all I could tell was that the man on the other side was at least 6 feet tall and easily over double my weight. No way in hell I was going to unlock that door. I responded to the guy, telling him he must have had the wrong room. He continued pounding on the door while constantly turning the handle, telling me he needed in, and was getting in the room one way or another. I panicked, but thankfully had the sense to grab the phone and call the front desk. The concierge confirmed that they had neither sent anyone up to my room, nor had they received a call about the bathroom. The entire time, this guy was still determined to get into my room. Lucky for me, the front desk had dispatched security to my floor. When the security officers step off the elevator, a few seconds later, I can hear them in the hall approach the guy and ask who he was, what he was doing, and telling him he needed to leave the hotel. He immediately gets hostile and aggressive towards them, and the front desk clerk I'm still on the phone with tells me the police have been called and are on their way. Long story short, the cops show up pretty quickly and manage to arrest the guy for trespassing. I later found out that the guy was also wanted in connection to a string of break-ins and violent sexual assaults in Austin. He had seen and stalked me from the minute I entered the hotel lobby. Apparently, I was exactly his type of victim. Nothing else happened after that, but it still rattled the hell out of me for the rest of the stay in that hotel. I was back home for the summer for the first time in a year after starting college. Our home was just outside of a small town with forests all around. There was also a small man-made lake which was diverged from a river that ran for miles through the forest. Near my home, there was a small grassy path that led to the river following a stream. It was a long walk, but one I used to go on often as a child. I knew the forest there well. I knew where I could cut through dense trees to meet the stream. The walk I would go on always led me off the path, which turned northwest and then took a sharp turn to the west after a few miles walk, at which point the stream was hidden quite deep into the forest. I'd continue to walk north and follow the stream through the forest to get into the river. It's easy to get lost in this forest because the terrain isn't just a slope down to the water, it goes up and down and you end up surrounded by trees. I'd spent many days wandering around there alone or with my dad over 18 years and never saw anybody else in that forest. The first time I left in the morning, I walked along the path away from the stream to the sharp bend, then cut back into the forest. As I was running my hands in the water, I heard a bell come from the north. Something was making a bell ring periodically, which I found strange. I listened and wondered if it was a lost hunting dog and started moving towards the sound. As I was getting closer, I realized it couldn't have been an animal. I could tell the bell was too heavy because of how clear the sound was to be on a collar. I kept moving and the bell was moving away from me. It stopped completely after 5 minutes. The stream wasn't big enough or strong enough to carry a bell. That could have been enclosed in a tin or something, and the river was too far still. I thought of everything, but nothing explained the sound apart from the obvious thing, which I just didn't feel comfortable with for some reason. I knew it had to have been a person. When I kept moving towards the ringing sound, I found a badger. A dead one. Carefully decapitated. It had been done with a knife. It was fairly fresh, the body was still limp, and there wasn't too much smell coming from it. The wound was full of maggots, but I knew that happened soon after exposure. The sound of the bell had been following the stream, so the badger was put there, maybe killed there, at least decapitated here. After I saw that, I quickly left, and 1 week later I went back for the second time that summer, and the last time ever. I left home at around 6 p.m. and then walked to the river in about an hour, then decided to go back the way I came because it was getting late, and it was raining quite heavily. I was walking as fast as I could. The sound of the rain in the trees was surreal and loud. I was somewhat trotting with my head down for a while, through the clearest and most open part of the forest, when I bumped into something heavy. The smell was sickly. It was the decomposing body of the badger, with its head strung to its front paws just swinging from a tree. It felt like a bucket of ice-cold water had been thrown over me when I realized that I walked the same way to get to the river, so someone had strung up the body after I'd passed it on the way there. Someone knew I'd see it, so someone was watching me and running around the forest. Then all of a sudden, I heard the bell again. I proceeded to call my dad while running. I told him to meet me on the path where it sharply turns west. It was the closest part of the path to me, to go as fast as he could, and that someone was in the forest with me. The bell went on for way longer than the last time. I felt like it was surrounding me at one point. The fear combined with my compromised hearing and the fact that I couldn't breathe properly was making me slightly lose my sense of direction. I was terrified, so I went into survival mode. I was doing the half-running, half-speed-walking thing again because I was out of breath. Then I heard branches break, clear footsteps for the first time from down in the forest, and the bell ringing louder. I didn't want to, but I looked over my shoulder. That's when I saw what was in this forest with me. A tall man, creeping in my direction at the very end of the clearing, ringing this bell slowly in front of his stomach. I could tell he was staring straight at me. Things no longer felt real. It was like my legs were moving by themselves. I didn't know if the man was still following me. I could only hear my heart beating in my ears and the bell. I finally heard my dad shout my name, and I knew he was coming my way, and that he could see me because of how close his voice sounded. My dad heard the bell on the way in too, and my mom could hear it on the phone. As much as I love taking walks in that forest, I'm never going back again. A few months ago, I was driving back to school from visiting my parents. It was about a 2-hour drive, so I usually keep myself entertained with music. Suddenly, I noticed a semi-truck going the same speed as me in the right lane. I tried to speed up so he couldn't see me anymore. Then he matched my speed, which pissed me off a little bit, so I looked at the driver. To my surprise, he was smiling and waving. Thrown off, I kind of chuckled and waved back. He moves over to the middle lane to be closer to me, and now he won't stop smiling and waving. At first I played nice, waving back a little because a semi-truck beats a tiny pickup truck any day, but I was mostly focused on getting out of this guy's field of vision safely. I tried speeding up as fast as my truck would allow and slowing down as suddenly as I could without endangering anyone behind me, but he would just match my speed no matter what. If someone was coming up in his lane, he'd move to the right at the last possible second and pass them before I could slow down and get behind them. The whole time he's smiling and waving, holding up the number 1 finger. For some reason, I still don't know, and rapidly losing any charm he once had. As this continued for about 5 miles, I got worried and called 911. I gave them a description of the truck driver. They advised me to pull off into the emergency shoulder on the left, but I couldn't do that, and it looked too narrow, so I didn't feel comfortable doing that. At this point, he was passing someone else in the middle lane, and I finally had a chance to slow down and merge 2 lanes over. I started speeding past him so he couldn't trap me again, and the operator told me to take the closest service plaza about 5 miles away. She said he probably wouldn't follow me, so I could stop there for a few minutes before getting back on the highway. She told me to call if he did follow me. As I'm approaching the exit, I looked to my left, and I noticed he's still holding up the number 1 sign and smiling this creepy, increasingly perverted grin at me while I avoid eye contact. The service plaza is just a quarter mile away now. I'm not using any turn signals, but I guess he knew what I was doing because he braked hard and merged right behind me at the last second to join me in exiting to the service plaza. I called 911 again. Now the way the service plaza was set up was that semi-trucks had to use a separate lane winding to the right of the plaza that led to a parking lot just for big trucks. I parked, and as I was explaining to the new operator what was going on, I watched the semi-truck creep around its path, while the driver stared me down, smiling. He knew where I had parked. He knew where to find me if I just stayed there. I thought maybe I could have floored it to get back on the highway, but I was afraid he would see me and follow me again. So I drove to a gas station that had a view of the semi-truck parking lot, hoping he wouldn't find me until the police came. At this point, the operator transferred me to the woman who was helping me before. She informed me that they'd dispatch a couple of police cars, but couldn't tell me how long they would be. I see the trucker has gotten out of his truck and is heading towards me. Even though my windows are closed and my doors are locked, I'm panicking on the phone to the operator. She tells me the police should be here soon, and I should be safe here. So I should sit tight while I'll keep her updated. I wanted to at least drive back to the parking lot I was in before, but it's a one-way entrance to the gas station, so I couldn't. I glared at the trucker and showed him my phone when he came close. He finally stopped smiling and made it look like he was going into the service plaza. I looked in my right side view mirror and found him hiding behind a big white pillar in front of the plaza, just staring at me. Then he comes out of hiding and starts walking toward my truck. I put it in drive just in case and tell the operator what he's doing. I refuse to make eye contact with him, but I keep watching my mirrors to make sure I know where he is. His creepy smile is back and he starts walking circles around my truck, looking at it as if looking for a way to get in. I waited until he circled back behind me, floored it, and told the operator I was not waiting one more second for the police. She apologized and told me the police would look for the man and talk to him if they found him, and that I should focus on getting home safely while keeping an eye out for him. I don't know if they did that or not, but I know none of that would have happened if I had my boyfriend with me.